This meeting is being recorded.
Nathan, we're short Nathan, right? We will go ahead and start because we have, I've asked Jason Ash to do our invocation, and Wesley will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So Jason, if you could come forward.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful for this beautiful day and for the opportunity we have to come together at this time and to discuss and make decisions about the government here in Highland. And we ask you to please bless us, guide us, and direct us that we might be able to reach the conclusions that we need to, and might be guided to do what's best for the people of the city, for which we have stewardship. And we are again grateful for this opportunity and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I guess everyone stand up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Wesley. Our first item of business is unscheduled public appearances. We do have a couple of public hearings. One thing, Stephanie, I forgot. The preliminary plat approval, is that a public hearing?
No, that is not.
Okay. All
Public
right.
hearings held before the Planning Commission
Okay.
for preliminary plats.
Okay, perfect. Then we only have one. If you want to speak to any issue outside of that or something that's not on the agenda, you're welcome to come to the pulpit and let us hear your thoughts about whatever. You can compliment Nathan's haircut, or Brittany's sweater, or Scott's mask. I see there are no public comments here. Any online, Aaron? No public comments online? Okay, we are moving to item 2, which is consent agenda. There are 2 items. One is approval of the January 5th meeting minutes, and then the other is approval of a minor subdivision, Sunset Mountain Plat E. I would take a motion unless somebody wants to poll one or more of those items.
Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I move that the Highland City Council approve consent items 2A and 2B.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Scott, second by Kim. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, wait, sorry. Are we doing electronic voting?
Yes.
Okay,
You're absolutely able to if you want.
okay. So the screen here is turned on. Okay. Is everybody able to vote electronically? All right, that is approved unanimously. Thank you. All right. Item 3, public hearing, tax ordinance amendment, permitted uses in CR zone. So first we'll have staff review that with us. Council, feel free to ask questions, and when you're done with your presentation, we'll open it up for public hearing.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. Like the Mayor said, this is a text amendment request from Joe Ham, is the applicant, to amend the permitted uses in the CR zone. Oh, you're okay. Okay, a little bit of background. This amendment applies to the CR zone in its entirety. And the CR zone includes 11 lots that are also all included in the Highland Marketplace subdivision, and the applicants own 8 of these 11 lots. Basically, the list of permitted uses and the development code in the CR zone are very, very specific. If you saw, it was an attachment in the staff report. They're just lists and lists and lists of very specific types of retail. And so basically the overall goal is to make it a little more flexible in types of retail. I've looked through the other permitted uses in other zones, and they had that type of formatting where it was just generalized types of uses rather than lists of exactly what is permitted and what is not, that sort of thing. This is the vicinity map. These are the affected lots. Again, the applicants own 8 of the 11 of these. Just the text amendment in a little more detail, it would be adding the permitted uses of nail salons, and then shipping, mailing, pickup, and return centers not exceeding 2,500 square feet in area, which I will talk about in a little more detail in a moment. And general retail not otherwise prohibited, just to, again, give it the overall flexibility of types of retail. And then general office use. And another significant piece of this text amendment is that it would be allowing all of these uses on main and second level. The Planning Commission held their public hearing on January 26th. There were no residents that attended nor commented. Most of the discussion was on these pickup and return centers. Like I said, we'll talk about it on the next slide. And the commission did recommend approval of the proposed text amendment. So when pickup and return centers were brought to us as staff, initially we thought kind of like kiosk kind of things, but we were corrected. This is kind of what the applicant was going for in that terminology, which is more like the Amazon lockers, that kind of thing. And the applicant did point out this is a trend due to increase in online shopping.
So this would function as a return center for like an Amazon package or something you bought on eBay?
Depending on who the tenant is.
And so whoever they contract with to provide that service for people, like they would contract with the Amazon, let's just pretend Amazon and eBay.
That's how it's understood.
Walmart, whatever, but if I bought something there and I need to ship it back, I could go here rather than deal with the shipping labels.
Exactly, or if you don't want it to go directly to your house, you could just have it go directly to the return center and you pick it up at your own convenience, that type of thing. And because of that, because it would be used as like, it just needs more capacity, which is why we need a little more square footage than just a kiosk, because it is holding these customers' packages. And so the staff and planning commission recommended having this 2,500 square foot maximum. That way we just eliminate the option of having these giant post offices in the CR zone. This was also a point made by the applicant, is that it's becoming more and more common for retailers to not be open to housing these pickup and return centers in their facilities. And so that's another reason why they're wanting to make the square footages, like, just maximize their square footages so they can have their own facilities rather than being inside another. And for the text amendment overall, just reiterating the fact that zoning is designed to separate uses based on impact rather than the code being intended to say you're allowed to have this, this, and this type of retail. It's more, the goal is to have or generalize it and give people a little more flexibility in their businesses. And as staff looked at it, the proposed uses are consistent with the existing uses in the commercial retail zone, as well as the purposes and intent that are specified in the development code for the CR zone. Citizen participation, we did the appropriate noticing for the public hearing, as well as the normal noticing and postings we do for the planning commission and city council meetings. And we, as staff, recommend that the city council conduct a public hearing, accept the findings, and approve the proposed amendment. And we are here to answer any questions, and the applicant is here as well if you have any questions for him specifically.
Can we ask questions now?
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So one question I have is this pickup and return center. It looks like you can order things online there. Does it generate any sales tax? I mean, obviously, we're going to generate some property tax from the facility, but it provides a service, but does it generate any sales tax is my big question.
I would think, just a personal opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're ordering, you have a kiosk that somebody can log into their account and order from. We would get the sales tax by virtue of the Wayfair agreement. But go ahead, applicant.
My name is Joe Ham, representing MNG, the developer of the property. We own, by the way, I might just correct the text up here on the screen. We currently own 6. We have since August owned 6 of the parcels out there. 3 are owned by other entities. Blue Lemon owns their own parcels, CVS their own parcel, Quick Quack their own. Then we own 6, and we have an option to purchase the 2 large parcels that make up the 9 acres in the back, just for clarification. In regard to the pickup and return center, this is just a phenomena that's evolving in the retail world right now. If you go to most malls, particularly Simon and General Properties and those large mall owners, they are now centralizing all returns for all retailers, inside and outside the malls, just as a convenience. I'm not an attorney, but I can't imagine that the pickup and return center would be the point at which the sales tax would be charged. I think that's charged on the online sale in the jurisdiction in which it's sold. So if someone's returning it there or picking it up, I've got to believe they also generated that sales tax in that jurisdiction.
So, you know, a lot of this stuff is paid per zip code, and there's been discussion in our city because we share a zip code with American Fork. I've never been totally convinced that sales that happen in Highland, the sales tax all comes to Highland. Is there anything you would do to kind of help guarantee that?
Well, as the owner of the property, we're not going to be operating the businesses, so I'm sorry.
We don't know. We
but
really don't know.
I can't guarantee that.
It's like anything that's ordered online in the city.
Yeah.
So my second question is, you were talking a little bit before the meeting about there's been some interest for a new grocery store up in there, or do you feel pretty comfortable that the interest is pretty strong?
We do. Here with me tonight is our real estate broker, Lance Pendleton, who has been working on this property for several years now. And Lance has contacted hundreds of retailers, and not only do supermarkets provide a very stable and long-lasting tenancy in the property and drive traffic, which is what we need in order to sustain the shopping center, but there is interest from three supermarkets. I won't say they're all local, but one is local, two are from out of state, but national supermarkets that have expressed interest in the property. I will tell you that COVID has really pulled back travel by the people who evaluate these things, and so it's a slow process for them. But we have enough confidence that that's in their interest that we have spent the money to draw our preliminary plans to show that kind of a use there.
Now, we have a Sunday closing law in this city. Are these grocery stores aware of that? And would they be willing to be compliant?
We have made it clear, because we don't want to spend our time chasing someone who will later pull out. We've made it clear to them what the restrictions are.
Thank you.
Maybe a couple of questions on your return. So on your return center, is this like a UPS store? I mean, we have a, where they could come in and ship packages, or is it strictly a return center where they come and then they're going to box them up for those who return and ship it back out? I mean, that comes back to Councilman Smith's, question, because if it's a UPS center, it might generate some sales tax in shipping revenue and things that way. Do you know kind of a little bit? I have not been in one of these type of return centers.
It is an evolving business, so I can't tell you exactly how this will evolve, but I would hope we will also provide a lease space for a UPS or a FedEx facility here. What we're seeing in the industry is we're seeing just, as an example, Kohl's is now putting Amazon return counters in their department stores. The malls are putting group return and pickup centers. They're not providing service there for shipping because UPS does that very well in their own retail stores. So no, I don't see this as a shipping center. I see it as a pickup and return center.
So they are, actually, you can order and say, I want to pick it up at this shipping center.
Correct.
And it would go there, and then I wouldn't have to worry about somebody taking my stuff off the doorstep when I'm not home.
Correct.
Well, it will be staffed by somebody.
It will be.
And now this is only for item number 3 we're talking about, because item number 4 also kind of,
It's related, so maybe your questions here would answer ones you would have asked on 4.
yeah, that's just what I wasn't sure if you wanted me to wait, Mayor, for. So you're also showing Councilmember Smith asked you about the grocer. I noticed it's only about 4,500 square feet, where most grocers are 65, and so I assume it's maybe a little bit of a condensed grocer that's looking to come in. Is that correct?
It is slightly smaller than, say, the Smith Marketplace, but 45,000 square feet is certainly the bullseye for Sprouts, the Whole Foods, just a variety of other supermarkets that.
And then you have also a fitness component. I saw on one of the little drawings in our item number 4 is a fitness. Is that something else you're also looking to put in as fitness, or? Yes,
several months ago, Lance generated an interest from a user that wants to build. They are an investment company. They own several different investments, and one of those is a performance training center, and so they would be interested in putting that on the main floor with some offices and then some other offices above that.
Thank you.
Can I ask some questions about the restaurants? There's a couple of restaurants. Are you thinking fast food, or would by chance we ever get a sit-down restaurant? I mean,
Well, right now, Everyone is asking for a drive-through window right now because of the
Well, we're not going to have
pandemic.
COVID the rest of our lives, we hope.
Pardon me?
I say, hopefully, we're not going to have to deal with the pandemic the rest of,
We
Yeah.
agree, we agree. But I think it scared enough of the management companies, or of these managers, that they say, we can't plan for that to forever be absent in the marketplace. But we would hope that we also are able to put some sit-down restaurants in the large retail building, and we're looking to provide some outdoor space for those to be able to dine out in case they had to, because everyone's looking for that now too, as an escape for
right.
restrictions on indoor dining.
So have you had interest from a couple restaurants, or is that just maybe something that's,
We
A
have
wish.
had, it's preliminary, we haven't even signed letters of intent, but as I said, much of that interest which we had generated through summertime, because the pandemic has gone on so long, they've pulled back a little bit. We think we need to wait until, they will wait until they see a little bit more light at the end of the tunnel.
thank you.
I'll wait for some other questions as we go through the presentation on number 4, because it will generate some other questions.
Okay. No other questions? I will open the meeting up for a public hearing on item number 3. Anyone here want to speak to that item? Anyone online, Aaron?
If you're on Zoom and wish to speak to this, please hit *9 so I can unmute you. That's *9. And then let me check on YouTube real quick, Mayor. So nothing on YouTube. No one is raising their hand on Zoom, so.
Okay, and with that, I will close the public hearing. And council discussion, motion.
Mayor, I move that the city council accept the findings and approve the proposed amendment based on the findings that a return center would fit within our CR zone as a retail use.
Council, just a reminder that the amendment is more than just the return center, so if you
It's
just
using
reference
both
the findings.
stories and.
Yeah, just reference the findings in the staff report, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
As the findings in the staff report, then.
Okay.
I'll
Is there-
second it.
So motion by Kurt, second by Scott. Any further discussion? Looks like we're ready to vote. Oh, good. I have short names.
I swear I fixed
can-
that too.
Oh, but it makes it fun. Do you want to just vote verbally, Tim? Okay, so let's reveal those. Tim, your vote is? Yes. Okay, we can do the reveal. We should have pink and blue colors, depending on the topic, right? Because we're doing reveals. All right, that passes unanimously, and the mayor made people laugh. That is probably a first. All right, next item, item 4, site architectural plan approval, Highland Marketplace Phase 2. You're up.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. This is the item that was just previously discussed a little bit in item 3. This is Highland Marketplace Phase 2. The applicant, it's through MNG, is it Management, I believe? Yes, okay. They are requesting site plan approval as well as the architectural plan approval for the retail building. This is the vicinity map. It's lots 1 and 2 in the Highland Marketplace subdivision. A little bit of background. So yes, the applicants, plural, own 8 of the 11 lots. I spoke with, through email, one of the actual owners of lots 1 and 2, and they said that they were in approval of the site plan and the text amendment that you were requesting for the council. The background, there was a development agreement that the city entered into for this subdivision in 2007, and attached to that development agreement was a site plan approval, and that included just one building on the whole vicinity, and that building was 118,250 square feet with only grocery and retail, and so this is a major change, which is why they're having to come back and resubmit an entirely new master site plan. These are what I just explained. The request, the overall site plan, this will just establish overall circulation, building placement, access, parking, and also landscaping. And then the architectural plan for the retail building, it will establish, well, the architecture of the actual building, which is colors, materials, that type of thing. It went before the Planning Commission on January 26th, and in the Planning Commission meeting, most of the concerns were regarding the limited access along Timpanogos Highway and Alpine Highway, and the Planning Commission concluded to add a stipulation to their approval, or to their recommended approval, to make sure that staff contacted UDOT with the master plan and take under consideration just any recommendations or things that they had. This is a long list. These are the 9 stipulations that were attached to their approval. 9 is that one that I just mentioned that's added for staff to contact UDOT. That should say the city staff. Oh, the city share with UDOT, okay. We did add stipulation 8, which is to just ensure that there's no access from 5500 West, which is a residential street. Currently, there's a wall blocking off that street from this property, but we just wanted to make sure that no commercial traffic would be going through that neighborhood. And then number 5, the hours of operation and number of employees in compliance with our municipal code. And then most of them are pretty standard, just having landscaping and architecture that are compliant with our city code. This is the site plan. There are 5 buildings. It is over 9.64 acres. And this totals out to be 124,500 square feet of commercial, which is a significant increase from the original site plan back in 2007. They totaled in 524 parking stalls, and after it was calculated with the square footage they have, we require 498, so they exceeded it. And the accesses are from there, the 2 accesses on Timpanogos Highway and then 2 along Alpine Highway. And they're all the existing accesses that are between those buildings. This is the landscape plan. They have met the requirements of the development code. They added a few hardscape features, including the picnic tables, benches, walking space. And this is their architectural plan. The building height is 32 feet and 8 inches. The development code has a maximum of 45 feet for the CR zone. And the materials and colors are consistent with the architectural design standards for the CR zone as well. They also have included 4-sided architecture, which was a comment made by staff, and they updated that very quickly. Those are the elevations, just so you see from each side what it looks like. For citizen participation, appropriate notices were sent for the Planning Commission and City Council meetings. This doesn't require a public hearing, and we have received no written correspondence. And we as staff recommend that the City Council approve the site plan and architectural plan of the retail building, subject to the 9 stipulations that were recommended by the Planning Commission. And again, you know that the applicants are here if you have any questions for them or if you have any questions for staff.
Okay, council, you have questions? I know Kurt said he did, so you may as well just come up and...
Yeah, and I have questions too, Mayor.
Okay. Go ahead.
Do you want me to? Okay.
Rock, paper, scissors, you go first,
Okay.
because Kurt took,
We're nice to each other now, we sit by each other, so that's good.
you're not spreading.
However, I got a bigger desk, but anyhow.
So I'm the stepchild in the corner, you
That's
know.
because I'm the senior, I guess, here. But I guess my big concern is the intersection at Timpanogos Highway and Alpine Highway is probably one of the busiest intersections in the state. When we had UDOT look at it 2 or 3 years ago, it was a failing intersection. It's like a number E or something on the list. And I'm delighted that you're going to develop this area, but do you think these 4 access routes, and this is a question for our city engineer too, do you think it provides adequate access to these businesses? And is there anything we need to do as a city to maybe improve that? What's your feelings?
Well, I have developed numerous shopping centers, and I can tell you I'm delighted to have 4. Sometimes I have less than that. Could they be wider? They certainly could be. That would be more convenient for someone trying to navigate those narrower driveways. They are narrow. But as we looked at the site and evaluated it, we were thrilled with the number of access points, but we didn't see any way that we could add, let's talk about Alpine Highway first. If you're northbound on Alpine Highway, you have to go to the furthest north driveway to enter.
To enter.
Any earlier penetration through that raised median would put you penetrating right where the queuing begins on that median for southbound Alpine Highway turning eastbound towards Cedar Hills. So I can't imagine in my mind that UDOT would say that's good traffic planning to shorten that queuing, and I can yield to Todd on this, but I just can't imagine that that's true. So I guess we were very realistic about the chances of adding access points.
So you're happy having
We're happy
4?
with 4.
And you feel like there'll be sufficient access?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess I just want to hear from Todd. I know one of the stipulations was that the staff contact UDOT and just get your sense of making sure that this area is safe and we're not going to have more complaints of traffic.
You know, we could always improve. Am I happy with the current 4? No. A couple of them I feel have design flaws, and we can try to address some of that during the site plan approvals of these different sites. But all of UDOT's traffic studies for that intersection have included our current zoning. And so they understand this is going to be commercial. They've projected some of these traffic counts. But we will work with the developer as we look at these different sites and see what we can do to make the entrances better. But we do currently have some concerns, and we have shared some of those concerns with the accesses, and we're working through those. So.
Okay, thanks.
So will there be signage where these accesses are, so people know to go back up in there? I mean, are you thinking about that? I don't know. Because you'll own some of the buildings along the outside as well.
We are concerned about, and more than our concern, the retailers that we have spoken to are very concerned about people finding them.
Yes.
Now, I've been in the business for many years, and I know that that is oftentimes perception to them and not necessarily fact, but they make decisions based on their perception. And I know that they will tell us one of the conditions of their occupying the property will be that they get signage out on the highways. We have spoken to the staff about some proposed sign ideas, but until we have specific tenants and they give us their requirements, we're not yet tonight ready to move forward with a request for where those signs will be.
Scott, I find it's interesting, we're talking about circulation, and this appears to be what the Planning Commission spent a lot of time on. My question was exactly what Scott brought up. I'm very nervous about your circulation, your accesses as we get back there. you know, as I look, I frequently will go to Quick Quack Car Wash, which is in your, there. One of the concerns we have is the way where I'd call the dry cleaning building, where they have the dollar cuts, as we go in, it blocks, so you can't see cars coming from the other way. It's a invisible area, and so I always stop, but if a car come barreling in, I can see accidents happening there, which would cause, I think your traffic going northbound on SR 92 will try to turn in by the Quick Quack, because it will be an easier turn in there than probably trying to get a little further down. The other concern is that Quick Quack is exiting right out by that stop sign, and so if there starts to get a backup, if we have shopping center there, we've already had some accidents, I believe, Chief Williams, inside the car wash. Chief Williams, have we had very many accidents coming out of the car wash by that stop sign? Are you aware of anything there? I'm worried about that one little area there. It seems that we've created a little bit of a safety concern. So I'm worried about your circulation inside your shopping center.
That driveway where the Quick Quack is, fortunately, Quick Quack is on the right-hand lane for southbound. Okay. And what you would be concerned about, in my opinion, is the stacking out onto the highway from cars trying to get into the shopping center. Fortunately, this was developed with what I would consider a fairly long throat for the right-hand lane going northbound. So in my judgment, it's quite safe for getting cars off of Highway 92.
Is there any way you can work with Quick Quack that they can't just exit right out of their tunnel, that they have to make a left to come in? I mean, I'm just saying, because that's where I see some cars backing up and causes the tunnel to back up. You've got them all coming, you know, because we have there by the dry cleaner. I mean, it's...
Can you go back, Kelly, to their site plan? So we've expressed these concerns to the developer, Kurt, and if you look at their access on that very south west corner, that will be a straight through into the development. And then we will actually put stop signs, so that would be a stop, so you no longer have people trying to come straight through. They will actually stop before.
Yeah, right where you're at right there, that's where...
And then we've actually talked to the developer about painting all of that red so that we do not have the parking issue. And so we're looking, that's one of the access points that we have some serious issues with, and we're working through those issues, so.
Have we talked to Quick Quack, so as they come out of the tunnel, they can't come out? If they turn left, they go to their vacuums, and I think that would cause a queuing, which would push it a little bit out, and then you still can get on. It's just, I think it's, I always get nervous when I'm in that tunnel. I come out and I go, am I going to get hit as I come out? But if I turned left, and I'm worried about those cars, I've been backed up there, where I've been backed up and going, is that car going to hit me? I can't turn. You know, it's just trying to help your whole flow there.
So
I wish I was in the position of being able to pressure Quick Quack. I'm not sure they'll listen to me much, but...
So, Kurt, this may be more appropriate for a future meeting when we get more details, but glad you raised the concerns, and glad staff is already working on it, so I think that's a positive.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, council, further discussion or motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that the city council accept the findings and approve the site plan for Highland Marketplace Phase 2 and architectural plans for the retail building subject to the 9 stipulations recommended by the Planning Commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion by Kim, second by Scott.
Mayor, can I make an amendment?
Sure.
I'd like to move that Councilman Osler read aloud the 9 stipulations. Just kidding.
Okay. Yes, another epistle. All right. It's been moved, motion by Kim, second by Scott. Unless you want to amend your motion, Kim.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Okay. We're ready to vote, I think. Okay. All right, and that passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Next up is Site Plan Lone Peak Village Office 2.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Like the mayor said, this is a site plan for Lone Peak Village Office 2. This is the one just south of the existing office along Timpanogos Highway. I'll show you in just a moment. Daniel Schmidt is the applicant on behalf of WPI. There it is, and it's shown up in a strange color, but so it's just south of the existing building. This is an old site plan back from 1997. This was when they got, oh, it's okay, their original site plan approval. And so, as you can tell from, I'll go to this proposed site plan in just a moment, but when it comes to building location, square footage, landscaping plan, it's all very compliant with what was approved back in 1997. This was brought before the Planning Commission on January 26th. They had the responsibility to do the architectural approval, and there was also a request for a building height increase to 34 feet 6 inches. The maximum for the C1 zone is 30 feet, but in the code it does state that the Planning Commission has the ability to approve it to be up to 36 feet. And just overall, the commission did recommend approval of the site plan, and I'll look at this in a moment, but they did approve the architectural plan, and they also approved the request for the 34 feet 6 inches. This is the site plan. The lot is 0.984 acres, and the building is 14,882 square feet. It is 2 stories, so it's got a 7,442 square foot footprint, or building footprint, my goodness. They have 60 parking stalls, which is exactly what's required by our development code. And their accesses come from, they're the 2 from Town Center Boulevard, and then there are the existing accesses throughout the rest of Lone Peak Village that connect to their parking lots. This is the landscaping plan. They exceeded the landscaping requirement by 2.9%. And everything about it is compliant with the landscaping section of the development code for the C1 zone. Like I mentioned before, this was the architectural review done by the Planning Commission. They approved it based on the findings that the colors and materials were consistent with the architectural design standards in the C1 zone, as well as the fact that it had the 4-sided architecture, and then they did approve that request for the height increase. These are the elevations, just to make the city council aware. The colors are a little off on the screen, but it matches very well the colors and materials that are in the existing Lone Peak Village office just north of this. The citizen participation appropriate notices were sent out for the Planning Commission city council meetings, and we have received no written correspondences on the matter. This is our recommendation as staff, that the city council approve the site plan and landscape plan. It's inclusive, subject to the following stipulations, which are all very standard. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm not sure if the developer's on Zoom. It's Daniel Schmidt or Thomas or... Oh my goodness, you're here. Hi. So he's here if you have any questions for him directly.
So, council, do you have questions? We can just ask you to come up to the podium and make it easy. So if you'll state your name. Just
Daniel Schmidt, I'm with WPI, the developer.
So Kelly, can you bring back up the site plan, please?
Yes.
Directly on the south of that site plan, I know there's a road that goes through on that south side, and it looks like we have parking that is backing onto that road. Now, that road is not a city road from what I understand. Is that
the private?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So because it's a private road, they're able to back into that private road. Is that correct?
They're able to back into, as in?
Because if they park in, they're going to be backing out into that little roadway on the south side of their building, and also on their north.
Right. Mike, did you look at that? So yes, that is perfectly okay, according to Mike.
So are you finished? So I've got a question. I assume you're the owners of the building in front. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Correct.
And do we anticipate that we'll have kind of similar office use? Will there be any retail in there, or will it mainly be just office?
Yeah, we are anticipating mostly office. And when I say mostly office, you're getting now much of a crossover between some of the retail uses to some of the office uses, like some of the service medical.
Yes.
But yes, just office, and we're not planning on retail.
And do you feel like you have enough access? We've been talking about that.
Yeah, access isn't a problem. The drive, we view, like your previous question or concern there, about, we view it much like the shopping center interior roads or accesses where, you know, you have storefront parking and backing out into the sort of drive aisles. We see that, but yes, overall, access is fine.
So is there a name to this architectural style? I mean, it's very kind of modern. It's a little different than what else we have in the city.
It is. The original building remodel of the existing building
Yes.
was really thought through carefully, predominantly because it had that mansard roof styling, which was very difficult to sort of work around on a remodel. And working within the city codes, as well as the desire for a little bit more of a contemporary or modern slant that's coming into the marketplace today. The architects and the group was trying to find a good balance between the raw materials that are used in a lot of Highland architecture, as well as sort of cross-pollinating. But the original remodel of the first building was thought through very carefully in relationship to how it will affect this building, and then in time the remainder of the center will be remodeled also.
So do you own the rest of the center as well?
Yes, the Olympic Village Shopping Center is also the same group.
And you're talking about remodeling that?
Yes, at some point in the future.
You know, at one time I went and talked to WPI. Do you guys have, at that time you had I call it the pre-COVID time, you had one user that was looking for an office building. Is that still kind of the thought process, that you might just have one user take the whole building, or is that kind of changed?
That's kind of changed. We're in discussions with about 65% of the space right now. And we feel very solid on 50% of that space being pre-leased, and you know, we think that's going to increase as the vertical comes out of the ground.
So you think it's going to be more heavy medical then?
No, we don't necessarily know that right now, but of the uses, there are some of those medical service uses that are in discussion, yes.
Okay. And I apologize, I know we're talking about the Lone Peak Center here, but you also own the property out in front of Myers, correct?
Correct.
And at one time, you guys had shown a site plan of maybe some type of restaurants there or something that way. Is that still in the process over? I mean, this is close to this parcel here, so are you still marketing that, or have you backed away from marketing that?
Yeah, no, still marketing. In fact, you'll see come through the staff here very soon, the building to the west of Myers, closest to the west side. There is another parcel that's sort of behind the Wendy's that's closer to this building here, that's still being marketed with no current...
So you're saying that little dirt pad right there by Wendy's, that little corner is what you're saying? Are you talking over by the west side of Myers?
The west side of Myers has current interest, and
where the water building
probably see
was.
plans here.
Yeah, that was the old water building, right?
Or where it
yes, in
was,
front.
yeah.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay,
Okay, thank you.
I would entertain a motion or
Okay.
in between council.
I'll make a motion. I move that the City Council accept the findings and approve the site plan for Lone Peak Village Office 2 subject to the 3 stipulations recommended by the staff.
I'll second it.
Motion by Scott, second by Kim. And Aaron, we're ready to vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Next item, item 6, preliminary plat 10700, previously went by the name of Apple Creek.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Like you said, this is a preliminary plat approval request from McKay Christensen. Again, we all know it as Apple Creek. This is a vicinity map. It's just east of where we're at right now. A little bit of background, this was approved as a PD district with 42 residential units and 23,000 square feet of commercial space, and that was on the August 4th, 2020 City Council meeting. Just a little refresher, preliminary plat process is not a discretionary process, meaning that the property owner is entitled to any of the approvals that are attached to the PD district back on August 4th. When this was presented to the Planning Commission, they did hold their public hearing on January 26th, which we do not hold a public hearing here for that. And the commission did recommend approval of the preliminary plat with the stipulations recommended by staff. After the meeting, we as staff did go back and look at the PD district approval and ended up editing the 4 stipulation a little bit. And just to clarify, that was just to ensure that there are 3 parking stalls per residential unit, just to clarify. This is the preliminary plat. It is a total of 5.84 acres, and that's 4.33 of it being residential, which is the 42 lots, and then 1.4 acres of it being commercial, and that will be split up into 2 lots. The proposed setbacks meet the requirements of the PD district, and the accesses there's that one from Alpine Highway, and then they have the shared access with the bank right there from 10700 North. And then we have that emergency access on the north end by Ace Hardware, and they have the bollards that are all lined up there on that.
Kelly, since you're talking about accesses, the one that's between them and UCCU,
Yes.
is that, since it's shared, that's not a public road, that will be a private drive maintained between those 2 property owners?
I believe, I'm actually unsure. Is that true, Nathan?
Everything on site is private.
Okay. Yes, as it's a PD district, great. This is a landscape plan. I know y'all have seen this plenty of times, but just to show everyone again, there's a parkway detail that's going to be continued up to the north, and staff has also stipulated that a berm be placed in the parkway detail along Alpine Highway, just because they did change the locations of those commercial buildings to be closer to the residential, so it's just to increase screening along that parking lot right there. And then you have the green space with the pavilion in the center, and then the tot lot, which I know the details for that tot lot were put in the staff report. We held the DRC on January 6th, which now is not required anymore, as we had that text amendment a couple of council meetings ago. The appropriate noticing for the meeting this as a public hearing were noticed, and then the notices were sent out for Planning Commission, City Council, just posted as required by our code. And we have received no written correspondences. And we as staff recommend that the City Council accept the findings and approve the preliminary plat subject to these, that should say, 3 stipulations recommended by the Planning Commission, and then stipulation 4 revised and as recommended by staff. I don't believe McKay is on the Zoom, but we're happy to answer any questions if y'all have any.
McKay, if you are and you're going by your name is something different, you can hit *9 and we can unmute you.
Is he there?
Chris, is that?
I don't believe he is. None of the names match him. There's one phone number that I don't recognize. But.
So I've got some questions. Certainly this plan's evolved over time, and I think it's much improved. One of the questions, as I was discussing with Councilwoman Bills, we weren't quite sure on the phasing. I mean, it's obvious what phase 1, 2, and 3 of the residential, but when does the phase 1 of the commercial start? I wasn't quite sure from reading the material. Does it start at the same time with the other phase 1, or is it down the road, or?
So I had that question too. So those 10 parking spots that are on the northwest side of that northern commercial lot, those are going to be built alongside that, I believe it's phase 4, it's with those brownstone units on the north, so that piece of the parking lot will be built as those visitor parking stalls to meet that 3 parking stall per unit requirement. But those commercial phases are separate from the residential phases, and those will be done when site plan approvals are submitted, or site plan applications are submitted, and we'll go through that whole site plan process so we can get the details in that. We really just put the buildings there just to illustrate a little bit, so we have a kind of an understanding, but those will be set when we go before planning commissions and city council again in the future.
So if the commercial in phase 2 and 1, and you've got a lot of parking around that, of course, I guess I don't really quite understand where the 3 parking spots are for each one of the residencies. I can understand the brownstones, you've kind of explained that, but if they don't do the commercial till later, are they using some of those parking spots for the residential? Where are the residential parking?
Yeah, these shapes just show the lots, they don't show the actual buildings, but they have 2 garage spots, and then they have a concrete pad on the side of the home that is the visitor parking stall.
So they will be parking off the street?
Yes.
Theoretically?
Yes.
Because that's always a problem in this high-density area.
That was what was originally approved in the PD district, so we're just enforcing that, and I believe that was in the plans that's in the staff report, just as an attachment if you wanted to look at, just get a little bit better of a visual than seeing these lot shapes. But.
So Kelly, you already pointed this out, so the 10 parking spots, they're there by the Ballard, those will be improved when they improve phase 4, correct?
Yes, of the residential, yes.
Of the residential.
Mm-hmm.
Now, also, they gave detail on the play set. Did they give any detail on their pavilion? I mean, when we were kind of looking at all this, they had some really neat drawings on pavilions. Are they still planning to do the same pavilion style that they presented?
So I do remember from reading through the stipulations and approvals of the PD district that the architectural colors, all like the plans for the pavilion, would be presented to the council before it was built. So that will go before y'all before it's done.
Yeah. And we all look forward to it. Sorry.
So after council meeting, we can go play? Is that?
What?
After council meeting, we can go play.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Then I would entertain a motion.
I move that the city council accept the findings and approve the 10-700 preliminary plat, subject to the 4 stipulations as listed in the staff report.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion by Kurt, second by Brittany. And we're ready to vote. So there are 4 yeses and 1 no. Thank you. All right, next item. Purchase and 2 construction contracts, kitchen countertop replacement, dishwasher replacement, and additional access control door for the Highland Fire Station. Reader, you're going to do that?
Hey, Mayor, before we go back, can we look at that other one where we were talking about parking? Oh, I guess, never mind, it's been answered, never.
Yeah, it's been answered.
Okay, Reed, go ahead.
Thank you. We can look at the next slide, please.
This is what I have. Was there supposed to be, sorry, I didn't do this. Is it something that's in the staff report I can pull up?
Yeah, it
Chief?
was in the staff report. That's okay.
Okay, give me a
In the
second.
meantime, I'll just give the background. So the Highland Fire Station was constructed in 2007, 2008. The countertops for the kitchen area are original. They're a Formica top. Since I came to the department in 2018, and since that point in time, there are areas that the top has chipped and began to fail. It's due for replacement. There's difficulty for us to be able to maintain a sanitary cooking and food preparation area in the countertops. The photos that you see there on the slideshow kind of demonstrate some of the failures that exist there. Our proposal is to replace the countertops with a solid surface material. We've received 2 bids for that replacement, which is in the packet, and our proposal would be to accept the lower of the 2 bids. In addition, you see the 2 separate pictures there, and that's on both sides of what is the kitchen sink area. This food prep area houses the firefighters that work and live essentially out of there. We have 24/7, 365 use of the facility, and so they cook and prepare meals at the facility, and houses on average 5 line staff per day, and then you have some administrative staff that occasionally use the kitchen area as well. The dishwashers are at the end of their usable life. There were dual dishwashers installed just based on the staffing needs of the group coming in and out of there. So basically, if they are going from one meal to the next while the dishwasher's running, they can prep the second dishwasher. So the proposal includes the replacement of those as well. And then the other component that's addressed in the staff packet is access control door and hardware associated with an area in the basement of the fire station. We have an area that supplies or controls where the server is for the fire department, and also controls where the internet access is piped essentially from the fire station to the city hall and the police and justice center. And that currently just has a key access. With that, we have additional storage in that area where we supply or keep some of our medical supplies. It also is a records retention area and houses our mechanical room and water heater, furnaces, things of that nature, and the access to the emergency generator. And so the proposal is to have that be a card access door. We have 40 plus employees that travel in and out of there, and then in addition we have the IT contracted staff that come in and out of there for various uses, and being able to have some access control on that door. The challenge that we found is that the current access control for the fire station, we've exceeded the number of door access points for the mainframe or the brain, if you will, of the operation, and so we have to add an additional control panel, and the amount listed there is to address not only the operational hardware, but the addition of additional storage for the door access control. I'd entertain any questions you might have regarding the items listed in the staff report.
Chief?
Yes, sir.
One question. When you put in the quartz countertops, what's the lifespan of those?
When I asked, so Brian Hodson is our firefighter that did the analysis. He's a general contractor. he anticipated we'd outlast the life of the cabinetry, so I'm guessing a 15-year life cycle.
Minimum?
That's my thought there. The cabinets themselves are in decent shape, and so I would anticipate at some point in time when that area, that entire space needs to be remodeled, we'd address the whole project at that point in time.
Chief Thompson, a question. You're asking for the funds for this to come out of the city's general fund or out of the fire department's general fund?
So out of the city general fund, but the way I guess the arrangement is made for the building, out of the fire operations budget, we handle minor repairs and I guess equipment or things that need to be taken care of with a $500 or less limit, as is kind of outlined in the staff report. Items that are beyond that are the responsibility of essentially the owner, which is the city, and we would do the same thing with Alpine and their facility.
That's accurate.
Hey, Chief, what's the purpose of the card access control panel, and why do we need it now?
So the area there has multiple, I guess, uses, if you will, and multiple people that need to have access to it. We have, from a utility standpoint, so we have our furnace filters, our furnace access, our water heater. There's a sewer grinder pump in one of the rooms in that area, and so firefighters and other staff need to have access to that. Currently, we have a key that we use for that, and it gets hung on the kind of on the hook, if you will, and it also provides access to some items that are what we would deem to be differently access controlled. We have our medical records and other reports that are in a separate room off to the side of there, and then the server room has access there. And so with key access control, anybody, we can shut that on and off. We don't have to worry about where's the key and having the right people with a key and things of that nature. It's just handled like the rest of our door access throughout the facility, and provides a way in which the IT contracted staff can access the server room and not necessarily access our other equipment inside the space.
When I read through the resource material, I wasn't 100% sure exactly what the final cost if we approve all three items. Is it just over $8,000?
Yes, $8,048.50 is correct.
Yeah, that's which is up on the screen.
Yeah.
Yes, I should have looked up.
No, you're
Sorry.
okay.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
So three separate items there. The dishwashers totaled about $1,400, the $3,500 for the countertops, and then $3,150, I believe, for the access control hardware and appurtenances, I guess, for that.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Chief. Any other discussion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move that the City Council approve the replacement of kitchen countertops, kitchen dishwashers, and the addition of electronic door access pad in the Highland Fire Station.
I'll second it.
Motion by Kim, second by Scott. We're ready to vote. Okay. That's approved unanimously. All right, next item. Repealing section 4.12.050 Water Advisory Board of the Highland City Municipal Code. Nathan, you want to do that, or that?
It's yours. This
Okay.
one's yours item.
All right, so then let's push on. Oh, I don't have presentation, just what we had in the staff report, so I'm sorry. Can you bring the staff report up? Let me just summarize. For the last 3 years, at this time of year, I've discussed with staff whether or not we should continue the water board. This is the time of year that I have to make new appointments. And so this year, it's been somewhat mixed the last 2 years. This year, though, I talked to staff. I called every member of the board, and most of them felt, all staff members and, was it 5 out of the 7 board members felt like the board had fulfilled its purpose. I looked through the minutes of the previous meetings, and there were valuable items discussed for those participating, but the interesting stuff I felt was useful for the participants, but it didn't come back to us as council. So I talked to staff about this and asked them if they did an annual report, or they do an annual report to the water board on the PI and culinary systems. I've asked, I think that would be more effective if that came to the council directly. And so staff agreed, and sometime in the first quarter of every year, we'll get a report from the staff on both systems. And I think that, because I looked at the notes about those discussions, and they were really interesting, and I just wished that you guys, we'd all participated in that. So they've agreed to do that. We also do go out when we need to for third-party opinions. I think, and yes, there will be a few less residents directly involved in the Water Advisory Board, but I think by bringing the discussions into our meeting, that you'll have a broader audience that can hear about those things. I've also talked to Brent Wallace about participating in something called the Sustainability Coalition of Utah County. That's a board that I had previously attended. And most of the cities in at least North Utah County, Provo, Orem, Lehigh, Linden, PG, most of the cities up here participate in that. And in that meeting, they discuss what they're doing within their community to help with conservation things. And some of the items discussed in the Water Advisory Board meeting dealt with conservation as opposed to the systems. And I asked Brent Wallace, who was a member of the Water Advisory Board, to attend that. So he's going to attend it for 2 or 3 months, come back and report, and then decide if that's something useful for us to continue. If he's learning stuff, he'll share it with us. And then we can continue that aspect of what the Water Advisory Board provided to us, like with the xeriscaping that we approved. So I think it's a more effective use of staff's time, and it broadens the application or the information about need for conservation and what's going on with the water system to a more broad audience. Any questions?
Mayor, do you know, so I know that we're now getting, if you want to say feasibility studies, that, and maybe, you know, how we have to look out in the future. How long has the city been getting feasibility studies, if it be for our water projects, our PI projects and things that way? Has it been since the 80s, or has it been kind of something new that's kind of been coming about?
What do you mean by feasibility? I don't understand the question.
Well, it appears the feasibility study sometimes drives what projects we need to have in the future. Does that make sense? And so,
capital plans?
Yeah, like the capital plans. Were they doing capital plans back in the, you know, as the water board was founded? Were they doing, you know, what they were kind of thinking?
Under the water company?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So those capital facilities plans, they had them, and one of the reasons the board was created, based on looking at the resolutions that were passed to create it, was to ensure that the city continued with those plans and followed up on them. Well, it's 16 years later, you know, those plans have been updated, and I think we're pretty solid on our capital plan. So that need that was then, I think we've transitioned and assumed ownership of it. So yes, we do update how often, Todd, do you update that? Every 2 years, 4 years, 2 to 4 years? We update those plans. We just did it this year when we were looking at impact fees. But I think the annual report will be really informative for the council. So I look forward to that. Any other questions or comments? All right, I would entertain a motion then.
I'll make a motion. I move that the Highland City Council approve the ordinance repealing Section 4.12.050, the Water Advisory Board of the Highland City Municipal Code.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Scott, second by Kim. And we're ready to vote. Okay, that passes unanimously. All right, now for what I think is the interesting and fun part of the meeting is the trail plan. And I believe, Todd, you'll be presenting that to us. So this is we haven't seen this yet, so this is, the purpose of this part of the meeting is to introduce the plan, let us ask questions about it, and then go back and if you have more detailed questions, meet with staff in small groups, or we can hold a work session. This is something that we've been anticipating for a couple of years, and I'm excited to do that. We did some of the obvious trail work last year, and now Todd's going to tell us about what it looks like going forward for the next 5 years. Clicker, who has the clicker?
So Mayor, Council, this has been a long time coming. We started this process a couple years ago when Tara was here. Tara had started helping with doing some trail inventory. We felt like things have been going well with our roads, and we decided to do the same thing with our trails. And so we kind of took this on internally with staff. With our roads was actually a consultant that came in and did the work for us, but we've tried to take this on as as internal staff. Tara did a great job at driving most of the trails, getting video, looking at what the quality of the trails were. And then Tara moved on, as you know. We have hired Mike Burns. I don't know if you've all been able to meet Mike. Mike, wave.
Flash your mask down.
Mike has been a great asset to the engineering department and addition. So Mike has done most of the calculation and work on the trail plan, and so I'm going to give credit where credit is due. He's done a great job. We asked him to stick around to answer any questions, maybe technical questions. I'm going to give a broad overview, and then we can jump into details if you'd like. But long story short, we kind of took the approach to look at trails like we did roads. And that did not work. There we go. So trail maintenance plan. Basically what we did is we took an inventory of the trails, and then we looked at we basically categorized all of the trails in the city into three categories. PCI value, very similar to our roads. Basically the condition of the trail, trail usage, and the cost of the improvements to get it up to a good standard. And so we took all of those things and lumped it into some spreadsheets, and basically what came out was a priority list for our trails. So that this plan is based on science, not opinion. And so that's basically what we started with. We gathered all the data and put every single trail had, you know, a condition value to it, a traffic count. We put traffic counters out. We didn't get to all the trails, but we did as many as that we could. We definitely hit the major ones so that we had an idea.
Todd, sorry.
Yes.
For those that weren't around for the road plan, why don't you explain PCI?
Okay, PCI is Pavement Condition Index. Basically what we do is we look at cracks, we look at thicknesses, we look at just the overall drivability of the pavement, and assign a PCI value. And basically what that means is the higher value, the better condition of the asphalt.
So it's 1 through 7 or 1 through?
Well, there's a couple different ways to do it. We do 1 through 100.
Okay.
And so basically 100 would be ideal, brand new pavement down, it's in good shape. 0 would be you're basically a gravel road at that point. So we assigned PCI values to the trails and plugged in all the traffic data, the usage on the trail, and the cost of the improvements. And we came up with, and I apologize for you in the audience, but this is the map that you have before you. And we're going to come back to it, but basically this shows all the trails and the years that we plan on doing the work. But let me start here. This is the summary of all the information put into one sheet. I didn't want to bore you guys with all our engineering. I mean, we have sheet after sheet after sheet of information, but this is the summary. Basically what you see on the very left side is all of the trails lumped into general areas. Then what you see in that second column is our prioritized scores. So basically what we did is we got all the scores and then listed them in order, starting from the top. As you look on your sheet, Highland Glen Park is what scored the highest, and what really pushed it to the highest was the trail data, the counts. Because Highland Glen Trail gets the most traffic of any trail in Highland except for Murdoch Canal Trail, which is not even, it's not our trail, it's Utah County's. So the point is the highest priority went to Highland Glen, and then so forth all the way down that list on the left. And you can see the priority scores there in yellow that I just highlighted. Then the next one over is the costs. So these are the cost of the repairs for each one of those general sections of trail. And go ahead, Mayor.
So you did the general sections because if you bring somebody out to do it, they have just one area to work in or two. So it's not here, there.
Correct, especially with trails. Now roads, we can do smaller segments because we're talking about, you know, larger areas of asphalt. It's more, we still try to do that with our roads, but trails are much more cost effective to do that. And so that's why we did what we did. So we took all of the trails, I think, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, 168? Is that what the segments were that we ended up with? So we took all those 168 and broke them down into all of these general sections, if you will. So those are the costs of the repairs. Then what we did is we said, okay, our budget is roughly $130,000. That's roughly what our current budget is with all of our general fund trail money and our quarter-cent tax trail money that we get. And so then we started just going and saying, okay, what can we do in 2021? It is a little high. There are some reasons why these, so the first year I think was 100, I can't read it up there, I think it was 151,000. That's a little high because we're going to try to do all of Highland Glen, and we've done a couple of the trails in there this last year, but this was prior to us getting all the data. Does that make sense? So when we have bids come in, we're hoping that between bids and a few of those sections that we've already done, we can get that down to 130, 135,000. As we move through here, you can see we just started going down the priority list and saying this is what we'll do in 2022, this is what we'll do in 2023, 24, 25, and 26. And so basically this will get through all of our trails in the next 6 years. And do reconstruction, pavement preservation, crack seal, all of that is included in this. But we've also kept it a little bit low because there's places in the city where we have small sections that have been left over time that we haven't done proper connectivity. And so we're hopeful that as time goes on, we can actually capture some of those in the 6 year. We'll look at bid prices. We'll look at what we end up with as far as a bid for that year, and if we have money, then we'll start to construct some of those connectivity issues that we have.
So you're thinking of like Canterbury North where it connects to almost to the Murdoch
Yeah,
Canal
we have
Trail.
a couple small sections there. We have some sections up in the northwest part of the city where development, for some reason, did not create, some trail connectivity that we've got to do some there. So over time, we're going to try to, fix some of those issues while we're doing the maintenance. So,
Todd, the budgets, I guess I can just kind of zoom them up, but your budgets you're showing here do not have those repairs in them, correct?
this is just maintenance, not the connectivity. So as of now, we do not have those in there. And keep in mind, this is very similar to the road plan. If you remember, the road plan was a really general, broad, hey, this is what we can do. And then each year, we actually look at the individual projects, and then we make decisions from there. And so this is very similar. We'll actually look at Highland Glen and go out there and say, okay, these are the segments we're doing. We have currently assigned a treatment to each one of those segments based on our video and just, overall look at generalizations. When we actually do our project, we'll go out and do an actual plan and say, okay, this is a little bit different, this is a little bit different, and get more detailed. So
Todd,
yes.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, is this just trails? It doesn't include the sides of the trails?
Correct. This is just very similar to our roads. This is just general maintenance of the preservation of the asphalt. The side improvements, we're going to do that internally as small projects with our staff. And so I've already talked to them. We're moving forward with that regardless. So
Okay,
we're going to try to
perfect.
go in and do some of those improvements on our own.
Are you talking about you're trying to put like a little gravel on the
Yes.
side so the
Yep.
weeds aren't getting so close to the trail?
Yeah, so we feel like a lot of the problem that we have in the city is, and there's places where it's good, there's places where it's bad, but the point, what we've talked about internally as staff is going in and, a foot or two outside the trail pavement, actually digging down, putting in some either asphalt tailings or some gravel to try to knock down the weeds and keep it looking nice, the edges. And then we feel like at that point, maybe we won't get as many complaints about the native stuff as long as the trail corridor looks nice. So we're going to try to do that ourselves. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I was giving Kim a thumbs up, because this has been something that Kim's kind of been spearheading, saying
Yeah.
she wants those sides of the trails, and I just given Kim a thumbs up of doing that.
I think one of the main things when people talk about the trails, they're not maintained, I think a lot of times they're just saying the sides.
Yeah.
The weed fest on the sides, especially because it creeps into their yards. And so if that's something that we could address, and if it really will be addressed by staff, I think along with what you have presented would be a great thing.
Right, and it's going to take us some time, but we're going to try to make sure that we're doing that for all of the trails that we're doing surface treatments on. So by the time we do the surface treatment, it's cleaned up, it's nice, and it goes down nice.
No goat head weeds.
What was that?
No goat head puncture
Well,
weeds.
and honestly, I think that over time, this will be helpful, because I think the goat heads come because we knock it down. We knock it down, we knock it down. And so we're hopeful that this will help that. So
Todd, can I ask a question? So you prioritize the Highland Glen Park, which I think is great. So currently, all the Murdoch Canal Trail traffic goes through the Highland Glen Park, which is, I assume, will be eliminated in April or May. So are you going to change signage in there and a few things, or you're just going to pave the trails, or, because there is a little bit of signage directing you to get to different places, or you're just going to leave that in, or?
Well, the ones that make sense to leave, we will leave. There's new signage that will be going up on the Murdoch Canal Trail, the reroute. And as soon as we open that up, I think that the traveling public on the trails will have a really good idea of where that goes. It's now straight. You don't have to go through Highland Glen Park anymore. But we'll leave the signage that's in place. And the crazy thing is the counts that we did in Highland Glen were actually like later on, late fall, and we did it on the trail that was coming from, Mike actually went out and did some visual counts, and it was surprising how much traffic they get, even though it's not really the connection for Highland, or for Murdoch Canal through. He was sitting at a location where it was actually just up to Lone Peak High School.
Right.
And we had so much usage that it actually, those counts that we know are accurate, because he was sitting out there counting them, were the highest we had, so.
So I'm just trying to look at this because it's small, and I know that area well because I go on those trails. But it looks to me like one of the ones you're going to finish is right next to the road that goes to the parking area. Is that right? It's just down below that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I was trying to figure out exactly how they work.
So this plan, Scott, it covers every trail that we have in Highland in 6 years. And so, you know, we're trying to, we'll do the best that we can, and hopefully we can actually make it through sooner and use some of the extra money to do some of these connections, so.
Because like you said, well, like you have in Bull River Trail, it's not just a connection, it's moving part of the trail that's on a person's property. And
well, and some of those details we'll get into, and that estimate may change a little bit, but yeah, the Bull River Trail, that 2023 project, we've got some details to work out. We've got to figure that out. It's a beautiful trail, we need to fix it. I think if we fix it, we will get a lot of usage on that trail. So those are some details that Mike and I are going to need to work on for the next couple of years and get it figured out.
Like the sports court that's on it?
Yes. Yeah, so,
okay.
You know, depending on what happens with that, we may have some walls, you know, some grading issues that we've got to take care of, so.
I think it's great to start looking at connections. Like you said, in Canterbury North, you have a nice trail in Canterbury North that just comes, and they can't hit the Murdoch Trail unless they hit it from roads. You know, there's some connection. We got up there at Beacon Hills, you go walk around that park, you also come to an area that wasn't finished. You know, so I think this is great, Todd. I appreciate. I know you spend a lot of time. You're spending a lot of time, so thank you.
Well, I spent 1/10 the time Mike did, so you know, he's been a great addition to our staff, and we couldn't do some of these things internally without him. So I appreciate his help.
Thank you, Mike. It's Mike Burns, correct?
Mike Burns. Yep.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
So any other questions for us? At this point, what we're going to do is move forward. The purpose of this is to get any other feedback, anything you would like to see us do differently. We're kind of just taking the same thing, you know, approach we did with the roads. But at this point, we will now put it into a final draft, similar to a report that we can get approval through the city council and start working on it.
So you want us to look over it to see if there's some trails missing? Like, it looks like by Freedom Elementary, there's a little trail.
We can, and you know, what I could do is actually, we can just email the PDF so you can actually zoom in a little bit better, if that would be helpful.
That would be helpful.
And we can send this document here so that you have kind of the priority and see what we've done. Does that work? And then once we get your feedback, we can incorporate that into the plan, come up with a final draft that you would approve and we would adopt.
So I do have one question about one trail.
Okay.
So as you go, you're just off 6,000 west, as you get up to 11,200, we have that trail, it's in dark blue, it goes up to the power station, you know what I'm talking about?
So you're all the way up to 11,800 then?
11,800, I said
okay.
11,200, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
And it just dead ends?
And it just dead ends. There's a dirt path there that we talked about this issue, you know, a few months ago. And then with Plat E for Beacon Hills, we're putting some of the trail up in there.
Correct.
Is there any plans, I don't see this colored, is there any plans to maybe connect all of that? Or finish it?
So Scott, those are when I said the northwest area, those are the connections that I'm talking about. We've actually met with the residents up there that these trail connections would go through, and we're planning to do them. They're actually doing grading to make sure that they're going to happen. But it's just a matter of seeing, you know, working it into our plan and finding those extra funds to do that, so.
So the part of that trail is in 2024, So you assume with Platy and all that, it'd be nice to connect that. Of course, you have to go up along the east side of Chamberry Field.
Yeah, the hope is that by that time, we could have saved the money to do some of those connections while we do the maintenance, so it's all one continuous trail. So I guess let me ask a question. Would the council would you prefer that we include those in this, the connections in the plan, and push this out to a 7-8-year plan, or what do you think?
I would like to see the connections, personally, because some of those trails are partly built. It'd be nice to see what the plans are to finish them.
Yeah, and I think if you spread 8 years, it's better to see that, hey, when we're coming to work on this, we're going to be connecting some of these, because, you know, like Scott's having questions, I'm having questions on certain trail areas. I mean, it's awesome what you're doing. I think we're finally given a vision how we're trying to take care of the city's trails. We're hoping to take care of the vision of the open space, you know, where we've been getting a lot of complaints, so.
Any other comments, questions, concerns?
Sure, Wesley, you're here, you've endured.
Thanks, Council.
You come to the podium, and then we have,
well, Todd, I just had a couple questions. So there are a couple of like man-made, crowdsourced kind of trails in Highland Glen that kind of cut up a mountain and go around and stuff. I know that at one point, forever ago, there was those stairs in Highland Glen that go up that was done by like BYU, some department in BYU, someone else might know specifically. Any consideration to actually doing something with those? I mean, it's got to be dangerous. These high school kids are always going up and down the hillsides on a couple of those places.
Are you talking about where the water comes in and people hike up by that?
Yeah, those stairs there.
Yeah, because there's people coming up there all the time, and I didn't even know there were stairs there. But
Yeah,
they're by the
it
water.
was done by some college department back in like the late 80s, early 90s.
It was done when we did not own that park. That was owned by the state at that time, and so that, I can't remember if it was
Todd, you know I'm going to harass you for the recording benefit to go to a mic. And Zoom and YouTube. We actually have 12 people watching.
So, yeah, Stephanie was giving me the stare down. She texts me every once in a while, go to the podium. Yeah, so we did not own the park at that time. I mean, you know, we do our best. We actually have some funding every year that goes to Highland Glen specifically. And the last 2 or 3 years, and in fact this year, we're spending the money on extra parking. If you've noticed, we've gone in there and done some clearing out. We've put down asphalt tailings. We put up some fences. So that's where we're spending the money currently, but man, we would love your input to, you know, and anyone's input of what they would love to see down there, because these are winter projects that we do with our parks. If you haven't noticed, we got in and redid the park at the mouth of the canyon this last couple winters as well, and put some time and effort into some bridges and park benches, and we feel like it's being used. And so I honestly haven't walked down that walkway for quite some time. I think I walked it down there maybe a couple years ago. I don't remember if it was dangerous.
It's amazing.
It looks dangerous.
It is beautiful, especially when we have the water running down there.
Yeah,
So,
that's where the kids play in the summer.
but anyway, let you keep going.
And then I'll let you keep coming up. I know that for parts of the trail systems that are, and same goes with like parks and stuff, that are like immediate safety concerns, that there's an automatic allocation to take care of those, and they kind of take priority. Does that, I was wondering where the funds for that come out, if you noticed any areas of any of like the 26, 25, 24 phase trails that are like obvious safety concerns. You're like, okay, well, we actually need to put this into 21 or 22 or whatever, because I can think of a couple that, you know, may or may not be safety concerns. I don't know what constitutes that. And then another question, Highland Glen related. Around the pond on that west side, there is, that constant erosion, and how at some point it may not affect that trail that goes along there, and like just the integrity of the trail. Is that on your radar? I know that there's been a couple of things that have been tried to shore that up that kind of just get washed into the pond. I didn't know I guess this is an update, because last time I heard that was still a head scratcher. I don't know.
I'll answer both of those. So we treat trails very similar to we treat roads. I'll give you a good example. Stevens Lane was one of the projects, one of the end projects on our 7-year plan with the roads, but there were some safety issues in there, so we went in and did some patching and made it safe until we can get to it. We treat the trails the same. So if we find out if there's a safety issue, it takes #1 priority, and we use some of our pothole money. We set aside pothole money and some patching money for those emergency situations, especially when because we'll have water line leaks that we have to get into roads. So we have money for that, and that is the #1 priority. The Highland Glen issue, we're well aware of it. We're constantly down there trying to fix that erosion problem, and in fact, when we get in there this year to do the trail, we'll completely rebuild that western piece. It's planned to completely rebuild it, and we plan to do some drainage under it so that we can kind of mitigate that and get the drainage further away from the trail so we don't have that erosion problem. So that's the plan.
Thank you.
Any other questions, concerns?
Yeah, this is a little question I have, and maybe it's an inappropriate question, but the Boyer Company is developing those 112 acres just east. I dare say that the 700 residences in there are going to be using that park a lot. Has there ever been any discussion with the Boyer Company suggesting that maybe they make a donation towards fixing that park up? Or have they ever, we need funds, basically, and it just seems like that's a wonderful accessory to their development. I don't know, it just kind of seems like they'd want to donate a little bit to fix the park up.
Scott, you're asking a non-engineering question. So I will refer to the council and Nathan about that.
Yeah, I don't know if we can ask, but I just wondered if there's ever been any discussion or something.
I agree. Highland Glen Park is a great amenity for the city.
It's a gem.
And it is getting well used in the summer, and that's why we've been clearing out, making more parking. We're replacing the 2 restrooms. We're doing some work to make it nicer. I honestly think that my hope is the Dry Creek Lake will take some of the burden off of Highland Glen. Mm-hmm. But I agree, once we develop that, the Boyer Company comes in, it will be very well used for many, many, many years. So
has there ever been any discussion about maybe having a non-resident fee or something with a little toll booth, because it's heavily used by non-residents?
I will let you discuss that with council and Nathan.
Okay.
So Scott, the question came up actually down at Dry Creek Lake about doing a usage fee. And I think we have to look to see where the funds come from. I know that if they take any funds from Utah Tourism, they can't charge fees because it came from a generalized tax situation. So I think we'd have to see how that.
But do we take funds from the tourism?
No, but I don't know what the agreement might be when we got the park. I mean, I know that it used to be called a Benchline Learning Park that was part of the state of Utah, so I don't know if there's some precluding of certain things that way. I don't know what all agreement.
Well, like roads and stuff, because it's 6F property, but I just wondered if there'd ever been any discussion, because it seems like we're going to have a park that's going to be even more used, and where are we going to find the funds to maintain it? Because, we're talking about all the trails in there, and there's a lot of maintenance.
So
I'm just throwing out ideas.
That's a good brainstorming thing. The Tourism Tax Board puts money towards regionally significant projects, and they'll do matching, So if we came up with a project to improve the park in some meaningful way, not just little things, but I think if we came up with hey, we want to do this or that, and put it in a package, we could go to the Tourism Tax Board and
Could we not do
ask-
that, because we need to fix that park up?
And
Yeah.
we have one of our residents, Shauna Smith, the Four Foods Group lady, is on that board. So we could,
So
work with
Mayor,
her.
does it have to be a new improvement, or how we're doing our,
It would have to, I think they're looking at capital improvement. It can't be maintenance, it needs to be capital.
But we could do some capital improvements
Yeah,
if we
yeah,
came
but-
up with a plan, yeah.
So I would, if you have thoughts on that line, work with each other, and then we can ask, we can just take that and run with it. We don't, staff, that's something we can do with staff support, but, it can be largely driven by
We
you.
could brainstorm it, get some ideas.
Yeah, I don't think, Scott brought up an idea of Boyer, I don't think it's bad to see if there might be something, a lot of those residents are going to be using that park. I mean, I think, so.
Patterson donates $10,000 every year to Highland. I don't know, Boyer Company may have some similar things, and now that they're here with us, we could ask Nathan.
I mean, it
next
wouldn't
time we
hurt to
talk
approach
stuff.
them, I don't think,
Yeah,
is
just
it?
say,
Yeah.
if you're doing donations to cities that you're operating in, please, sir, we want some more, I don't know.
Well, some of them have foundations or things that,
Well, and-
yeah.
We can't, we take money from them, and we can say, well, if you donate to us, we can we would dedicate it to this park, because we think
Yeah, you
that
can put their
that's-
name on part of it or something.
Correct. I mean, if there's a pavilion, or if there's some play sets, or
Yeah.
Maybe-
something
I
that
think
way.
though, as part of that though, when we have that discussion, we need to figure out what to do about the vandalism down there too.
We need some cameras. Chief, since vandalism's brought up, any ideas what to do with the vandalism down there in Highland Glen, other than not stop it?
Working on it. Todd can talk about it.
I'll jump in. So, Todd had a meeting with a contractor to do some camera for vandalism out there. One of the concerns is we have to have a camera that's detailed enough that we can recognize the person, we can zoom in on license plates and all that kind of important information, so we can actually process citations and things like that. One of the challenges we have right now is we actually have to finish the restrooms so we can get the power up, so we can mount those cameras. The other thing Chief and I have been talking about is doing gates at both sides, the top. And we're working on a plan to install gates, and then to, between the three organizations, make sure they get opened and shut. That's been the big hurdle in the past.
So you're going to gate the park and have a curfew on it? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, at curfew, right, like at dark in the summer, the gates would close, and in the morning they would open. We get them opened. We have to work out how that works.
I think that's a great idea. I think that would help, yeah.
We're working through the issues. As we mentioned in the email, we're working through the issues. It takes time, but that's what we're doing. Did you want to add any more detail you want to add, Todd, to that? What we're seeing and talking to Brian today is the adolescents or whoever it is that's in the park, they'll know Mr. Policeman's coming, and they'll just leave and wait up in Walmart or the high school parking lot, and policeman will come down and leave. They'll just wait for him to leave, then come back down. So we're trying to solve it from multiple angles.
I would just add that it seems that with COVID, it's gotten worse and worse and worse, and I think they're just bored, and they're finding ways to destroy our things, but at this point, the amount of money and labor and, the time that we're spending down there and the materials would far outweigh any camera costs that we would put in there. So that's why we met with the contractor. He's given us a quote, but it was someone that Chief William gave me the lead, and then I followed up, and we had a meeting with them, and the hope is that they can do a trial and then we can look at costs and see if it's worth it at that point, so.
So, and I know I don't try to deviate too much, but, you know, as we look at some of this Chief Gwillim's, I know that up in Alpine, they had fences that were being smashed. And I don't, you know, this one looks like there's some tagging going on, fences smashed. Does this look to be anything similar, maybe the same group doing it at all? Or is this, the tagging seems to be gearing us that it's a different group? And I'm sorry, we've kind of deviated off the trail situation, but this is something that's come up in the last week that,
We need to make sure that we stay on agenda.
yeah.
So there's nothing that would really indicate that it's the same group that's doing this, the vandalism in the different areas, so I don't know if that's answers your question or not.
That was, are you still seeing a lot of fence issues throughout the different cities? or-
No, not necessarily fence issues, but there are, Todd indicated that you know, COVID has increased the activities of whomever it is that's doing the damage, and I do think it's just kids that are bored and a lack of supervision, so.
So, just one more thing, because we're actually in discussion items, aren't we, or almost?
This is a report, so we're almost to discussion items, but
So, has there been any ideas about maybe having a park watch, or the neighbors in that area maybe staying up and kind of patrolling the park a little bit, or, I know there's some interest in some of the neighborhoods to
We
do
haven't
that.
contacted the neighbors or enacted a park watch, if you say. We have enacted an extra patrols from our standpoint, where we're giving some extra attention to that area. There are more drive-throughs, officers are spending more time down there. That's what we've done to this point, but, you know, maybe we need to purchase a couple of golf carts and give you guys.
I think there's some residents
flashlights.
down there that would really kind of enjoy doing that to a degree, in the summer at least,
Sure.
yeah.
Summer's fun, winter's not so much, so.
Right.
Are you retiring some of those little phaser things, whatever, the little shockers?
We administer or issue those to the park watch people?
Yeah.
Talking about tasers, so.
yes.
Tasers.
All right. Anything else for Todd about the trails? Everybody's happy? I'm ecstatic personally.
Yeah, I just want to thank you to staff. This is something I know that's taken a lot of time. Just thank you for taking the time to put together. I think this could be a good starting point to launch and start going with the trails.
Okay, so next, Aaron is up on the Mountain Ridge Park plan.
Mayor and council, give me 1 second. Okay. So first of all, kudos to you. Staff had predicted a much longer meeting. I did not think we would get to this item until 11 o'clock, so I am very impressed. Thank you for running an efficient meeting. Sorry, going through all of the animations. Okay, so Rob Donegan with Blue Line, who's been a partner with us on this project, he's not here in person because I thought this was going to be such a long meeting, and I thought this would be a very brief discussion. So I told him not to come, but he is available on Zoom, and I will unmute him so he can answer any questions that you guys have for either he or myself as we go through this. Okay, so he's unmuted. Okay, so Mountain Ridge Park. If you remember correctly, the last time we talked about this in a formal city council meeting as an agenda item was September 8th of last year. To give you a little bit of a recap, the priorities that we heard from you as to what you wanted to see in the park were the All Abilities Playground, the pickleball courts, the parking lot and road improvements, and the restroom and pavilion. And then in terms of how much money council was willing to allocate towards this, it was about $2.5 million, which comes from a variety of sources, including Spring Creek, the remaining money from that, the sale to Patterson Storage, Dry Creek property sale, the street tree fund that we need to utilize, and then qualifying expenses from our enterprise funds and the B&C road money. So all of that together totals about $2.5 million. So when you look at what we heard from you, council, that you wanted, This is an old rendering essentially of, it was essentially area A, B, and C that we heard from council that you hoped to be a top priority that we could get done in phase 1. So with that information, staff worked with Rob, who helped us get some updated bids because our numbers were out of date. Unfortunately, the numbers came in high. So the estimated costs, again, this isn't a formal bid, it's just an estimation with a contractor, was $4.4 million for that. And if you remember, so it was $2.5 million that we had available, which leaves us a shortfall of about $1.9 million. So staff took all the information that we had at this point, and we tried to come up with a phase 1 recommendation that we could afford within our current budget. So what that ended up being is, so you have 2 documents in front of you. What is it titled? Excuse me, it says phase 1, and there's no red on it. So is the document in front of you that we're proposing. So what that includes is all of the 10400 North improvements, a parking lot, but a very small section of the parking lot, about a third of the size of what the park will eventually need, would just be in front of the amenities that we're focused on. The first phase of an all-abilities playground, 4 of the pickleball courts, and a restroom, but it would be separate than a pavilion. So it still would be a restroom in the main area, but would not be the pavilion combo that we had originally envisioned. So our estimated cost for this would be $2.3 million, which does give us a little bit of wiggle room of about $142,000 should prices change. At this point, are there any questions about our proposal for phase 1?
What makes it so expensive?
Mainly, it's the fact that this is completely raw ground. We are spending a good chunk of the money just doing the site improvements for 10400, well, the 10400 North improvements, and then just all of the site improvements that have to be done to bring utilities and to get the grading proper and to get this site ready to actually put a park on it.
So I mean, this is 5 times what Spring Creek cost, basically. Is that just because you got to put in the infrastructure in the road?
The infrastructure in the road, it's just so enormously expensive. Unfortunately, a good chunk of our money is going towards that, not the pretty amenities that we want to see in a park.
It includes piping the canal, right?
Correct.
So that's kind of expensive.
You mean the ditch along there, the canal?
Yeah, piping the ditch. There's a ditch there on 10400 that would need to get piped.
So to give you an idea, Scott, let me make sure I'm looking at the right document. Yeah, just the 10400 North and site improvements cost $1.1 million. So it's almost half of just to do that. And then the park, is $1.1 million just to do that. So it eats up almost half of the budget. We do,
As a side note, we are using funds from a separate fund to do most of that work, right? Along the road?
So I allocated the ones that Todd told me we could for the B&C monies. But so 175 from there.
So
not a lot of money.
The 2.5 million that you listed included that money?
Correct.
Okay.
Included the qualifying monies from our enterprise funds and B&C road monies.
Okay.
If we want to be, we want to be hopeful, and so we've put together some quote-unquote additives that we could include should the situation change in terms of budget. So some additives could include adding in the large pavilion, because we do not currently have that in the plan, adding the additional pickleball courts, adding the parking lot along 5600 West, and then, a second phase of the All Abilities Playground. And so you can see those costs on the screen, but so the pavilion itself will cost around $70,000. The pickleball courts are about $416,000. 5600 West parking is a little over $200,000. And the All Abilities Playground is $600,000. Now, when you look at these numbers, understand that it's not just like the All Abilities Playground, it's not that we're spending $600,000 on playground equipment, it's all of the site preparation for that area as well, and the cement around it and everything to get it ready, and then the All Abilities equipment itself. But it's a small portion of that. Again, because this is raw ground, and we just have to do so much work before we're even ready to put anything on that.
So the 4 pickleball courts are the size of 1 tennis court. So it's going to cost us $500,000 to put in a tennis court because of the ground preparation? I'm kind of amazed at these prices.
Let's have Rob chime in.
Yeah, Rob, I think you should be unmuted. Do you want to make any comments? Oh, wait. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, and again, we're not trying to overinflate the prices, but we have found in the past couple of years the prices have escalated quite a bit, and we'd rather be more conservative and bid and build alternates into our design and bid package. And if bids come in more favorably, again, we can add that second set of 4, we could add the large pavilion, or we could add these other things that Aaron has talked about. We just don't want to tell you that it's only going to cost $1.5 million to do phase 1, and then bids come in over $2 million. And like Aaron did allude to, we have been working with the contractor that has built a number of parks for us to make sure that our pricing that we're presenting to you is market rate right now, which is sad that things are so expensive right now, but that's kind of the state of the market. So.
Just, what Scott's saying is $416,000 for 4 pickleball courts. I mean, if we go back 2 or 3 years, we were hearing $40,000 for a pickleball court, maybe up to $70. Now we're hearing it's over $100. And I understand there's some site stuff. It
kind of blows me away.
Yeah, and that does also include things like the gates, the fencing, the trash cans, benches, the shade sails that are around it. So we're not just talking the pickleball courts, it's kind of the ancillary things that go with the pickleball courts. But it is a majority of the cost, right? Just the concrete, we're estimating at about $365,000 for the pickleball courts themselves. But remember, we're also talking about the concrete that's around it, not just the courts, too.
Now, who was this fellow that just talked to us? I'm sorry.
Sorry, this is Rob Donovan. So he's with Blue Line, who's done all of these drawings for us and worked with us for a few years through this process. He came and presented. He was here at the September meeting. I apologize. I told him not to come because I did not think that we would get to this point so quickly in the meeting.
But you would bid this stuff out.
Absolutely.
So Rob says it's going to cost us.
Oh, no. So Rob has done the drawings for us, and he's worked with a vendor who does build parks to get us just a general estimate. But the next step, once if council would like us to move forward, we would go out to formal bid to actually get bids. And so the idea would be to do the base bid that staff is suggesting, the phase 1, but then to include those additives as well. And so if bids did come in lower than what we're seeing at this point, then we could add those in. Or if other funds were available through grants or donations or fundraising or anything like that, that we could add those extra elements in.
So what exactly do you plan on having in the All Abilities Park? What amenities are there? The general idea would be an accessible playground, but Rob, you're more of an expert on parks. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I would actually recommend working with your neighborhood to see what features they want to see in there as well. But if we're talking about fully accessible equipment, that would be not just your regular belt swings, but you have the special seats for accessible swings. You have equipment that actually wheelchair could roll up onto. We're having transfer stations to the ramps that, again, wheelchairs can roll up. The surfacing, we would recommend it being a poured-in-place rubberized surfacing rather than, wood chips that you see often, and that's, that is a higher cost as well. But really, above and beyond that, making everything accessible, we'd like to just get creative and obviously meet the budget that we have for that, but make it as interactive and accessible as possible.
So the second phase, the All Abilities Park, which is the other half, you have a price tag of over $500,000. I'd sure like to see some sort of breakdown. That just seems really expensive.
So again, that actually includes all the area within that dashed red area west of where the restaurant's going to go. So that would, again, include landscaping, surfacing, sidewalk, irrigation.
So I forgot to bring this up when we started, Aaron, but at the end of this discussion, what are we looking for? We're just informing council, and then we do a decision-making action item on a future meeting.
Exactly.
With more fleshed out.
Yeah, so if you have feedback now or in the next week or so, council, or 2 weeks, that I would rather us focus on this more or that more, kind of from a phased approach. We want that feedback, right? If you have any concerns about our proposal for phase 1. And then the second thing is, so the next time hopefully you'll see this, we'll be at a decision point. Are you ready to do full construction drawings and go to bid? That would be the request at that point. And so it's what information besides what we've provided do you need before you're ready to make that decision to go to bid? So those are my 2 questions for you.
I think I'll point out as well, we plan on doing construction drawings for the entire park. Everything that you see here on your screen and the fields to the south as well. But what we propose is trying to identify, again, a base bid, phase 1, including additional alternates, again, just to maximize your dollars. So, our design fee isn't based on inflating these prices or anything like that. We're just trying to give you realistic market rate prices. And so that, again, when the bids do come in, we're not shocked at where we stand and what we can afford.
So we're shocked now.
Well, sure, that may be true, but I'd rather you be shocked now before we bid it out and we come in with a price tag at bid that we can't afford.
So just a kind of adjacent question here. We've got still some area on the west side of this designed for park maintenance building, but we're not going to put the park maintenance building there, is my understanding. So are we going to design that section or eliminate that area?
My laser's still on. This area, anyway, this grassy area was designed initially to be more of a flex space That's
the area south.
So the area to the west of, so here's your restrooms. The area to the west of that was designed to be more of a flex space for whatever we decided would make sense in the future. In my opinion, essentially that is kind of now morphed into this whole area being a flex space, including the area for the parks maintenance building that is likely not going to go there now.
Right. So that's flex area.
Yeah, so we didn't want to, with the change to the park maintenance building, we didn't think it made sense to do a full redesign at this point and just kind of leave it, especially because it's not something we're proposing in phase 1, to leave it as is for right now.
So what
Sorry, we actually do have an updated site plan, not a rendered site plan, but an updated site plan that does show that area, including existing or additional parking. So that parking lot that you see right there will be extended to the west, right where that, I think you have your laser pointer, Aaron. And then just more, again, kind of multi-use open lawn area extending to the west as well.
It could be a dog walking park. We have a lot of requests for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're looking, so council, what she's looking for in the next week or 2 then is, you just saw this plan now, so I don't think we can fully think through it, but looking at it, they'll email you the drawings and the cost information, and then if you'll reach out to staff and comments, questions, prioritizations, why this, why that, we can resolve those or get them more formal, so when it comes to a meeting where we make a decision, you have what you need. So just, you'll want to let her know what it is you need on this, what can we do going forward, and then we'll have a more complete thing to look at. But this is, I think it's a good start, and I appreciate getting the sticker shock now instead of later, and making it conservative so that maybe we can do more than we think, but at least knowing kind of, this is going to cost a little bit. Now,
Can I ask Rob a question? The question I have is, if we went out to bid right now, it appears, I mean, when's the best time to try to get something to bid? Is it in the fall, where guys are trying to fill up their jobs coming in the next summer? Is it better to get it bid in the, here in spring? Is there a time where you see any cost differences, or is it the same, it doesn't matter when you're going to be going to bid?
I think everyone's pretty busy right now. I definitely would say that fall is better than bidding it right, in the spring. I mean, people's schedules are probably filled up through the summer, at least right now, if they're any, company of any value. So yeah, bidding late spring, early summer is not your prime bidding environment as far as getting good prices.
so that then leads me to a comment. If we were to do this in the fall, the grass that we have right now, is that anticipated to be sod? Or, because if we did it in the fall, maybe you could do disc-in grass instead of sod, and that would save some money.
I'm assuming, I'm almost certain this is sods. Disc-in, is that seed? Is that what you're talking about, Mayor?
It's seed, and then you do these furrows, and I was talking to a landscaper, and he said, that's like, they did that at the new park in Alpine. For the areas around, like the splash pad, they did do sod, so I would anticipate maybe that's appropriate for this. But for the bigger fielded areas, they did he referred to it as disc. And that, he said it was quite a bit cheaper.
Yeah, you can save quite a bit of money seeding your grass areas rather than sodding them. Right now, the price we have, that's been presented is a bluegrass sod.
So, and it might make sense for sod here because it's a little bit smaller space, and but for the fields, you could look at that, especially if you do those, or any of that type of work you do in the fall, because then come spring, it's pretty healthy.
So, Rob, just to make sure I understand, are you saying that we should try to bid it, like in May or June, and have the work done in the fall, or are you saying have the bid go out in September, October, November for the next year to start like in March or April? When's, what time?
I think we can bid it as soon as possible, as long as you're not planning on building it this year, but getting it on next year's schedule.
2022.
Okay.
Right.
So Rob, I think another, question for you. I mean, you've been with us on this project for a couple of years, and it seems like, as council is alluding to, prices have only increased. So I'm wondering if, like you're saying, we still bid it this year just to keep prices from continuing to escalate, again, knowing that it might be a while before we're able to do it.
Yeah, we can do that. I think your contractors know. It'll be a little tricky. The contractor's not going to want to hold his price for an unlimited amount of time.
Correct.
Yeah, of course.
Just again, as you know, lumber prices just went up, steel prices just went up. Everything just continues to go up. So I do think, even if we're going to build this in 2022, we should get into the design and finish it as quickly as possible. Put it on the market, get our bids in, lock those in. And hopefully get favorable pricing because people are stacking their schedule for next year rather than later this year.
I'd like to make a comment. I really like phase one. I just would really like to see some detailed breakdown of the pricing, because if I have to explain to constituents that we're paying $2.5 million to put in 4 pickleball courts, a pavilion, and half of an all abilities playground, that's kind of hard to explain. So it'd be nice to have it all broke down, and then, of course, I'd be happy to see bids, of course.
Yeah, and I mean, I can give you what we've got now, Mayor and Council, if you would like. Really, but like we've said, these are estimates at this point, so really when it comes down to it, it's when the bids come in, right? Are they going to be true to the estimate or not? And we think so, but it'll depend on what contractors decide to price at, so.
So, and if we could get some specifics on the All Abilities Playground, the half or whatever, because there have been donations through the Highland Foundation of over $7,000 for that, which is just a drop in the bucket, obviously. But, I think we could do some fundraising and stuff, because that's been a popular area. If we could say, hey, these are the amenities, can you help us raise some money? I think that would help a little bit as well. We also have some money in the foundation for the pickleball courts. I think it's $11,000 or something. But, it'd be just nice to have some ideas exactly what is entailed and details, because it's easier to fundraise.
Perfect. So more specifics on the finances, and then details on All Abilities,
All Abilities
some
Park,
pictures.
and maybe some of the amenities that you're saying with the pickleball, because I think, the foundation's going to meet later this month, and if we had a few more details and things like that, I think the foundation could go out and start doing some fundraising. I mean, they're not going to get tons of money, but at the same time, every little bit helps.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Aaron, are there grants available? What other options, maybe seeing what some other cities, if they've gotten any matching grants, or even who's helped fundraise, who's been some of the major donors. We brought, this is kind of something we were talking about 1.5 to 2 years ago with some fundraising, and there were some names chucked around a little bit that might help, so.
Yeah, there was a lot of names dropped, but nobody ever donated.
Yeah, we didn't have money. We had names, we just didn't have the money.
Virtual money's easy.
There's been a couple of grants we've looked at that don't fully qualify for this, or but we'll keep looking and seeing if there's something else.
Isn't there any grants, though, for the All Abilities Park? I would think.
I'm sure that there are for that, so we need to look more into that. The ones that I've looked at had to do with more, it's one we got for the mountain bike park by Highland Glen, but that has to be more outdoor recreation type. This doesn't qualify for that, but we'll look into All Abilities Playground type grants, so.
Oh.
One thing I just want to briefly let you know we're working on, because we think it's important, is to understand the maintenance costs of this park moving forward. As we spent a great deal of time talking about maintenance on this council meeting. So I don't have full details for you yet in terms of the costs, but in some ways, this park, we feel like, is going to be the straw that broke the camel's back, and we're looking at the point where we're going to need a new full-time employee in the Parks Department. And again, it's not that this park is going to require one person's time, one full employee's time, but over the years, we've added parks, and we've added parks, and we've added trails, and we've never increased our staff numbers. And so this is something that Todd's working on at this point. So outside of that, there would be additional costs with, seasonal workers, of course, and then just general maintenance costs that come with having a park. So.
Todd?
Mayor, Council, Aaron is absolutely correct that, it's no secret that we've talked about this before, that, we've grown quite a bit in the last 15 years, and our staff back in the early 2000s was actually bigger than our current staff in Public Works. And so this is a very strong opinion that we have, is that we are currently needing an extra staff already, and by adding this park, this would be, a good time to talk about that. Josh and I have looked at many different scenarios on what this extra person would do, between, possibly having, during the really heavy season of mowing, a second superintendent to help mow, but this person would ultimately take over all of the the pruning and fertilizing and be in charge of all that, where we currently don't have a person to do that. Right now, our current Public Works, our parks staff is Josh, the superintendent, Chris is over all of sprinklers, and then Hunter is over all of the mowing. And so basically, that's our entire parks department as far as full-time staff. The hope would be is with this extra person that they would take over all of the fertilizing, all of the tree pruning and native areas. And so that person would be in charge of that. And so we have, a person that is responsible for that and takes responsibility. So that is the hope, because I feel like we just keep getting bigger and bigger, and our level of service just keeps going down further and further, so.
Then the annual cost based on our salary survey, including benefits, would be basically $70,000.
And as we look at and I remember we brought up the park last year, but we wanted to have the funds in place to actually maintain it. I mean, that was some of our things. We were worried about maintenance of a new park coming in. And I think the mayor, at one time, you ran some numbers, and if we had all the grass and everything in this park, we figured just this park would add, an extra $80,000 to the park budget just to be able to maintain a year. I mean, it's not stopping it, we just got to be aware, like you said, you got your parks. So the parks guy is not, if we said it's $80,000 to maintain this park, you're saying $70,000 plus $80,000?
Well, again, as Aaron mentioned, we haven't done the calculations for phase one of what it would cost to maintenance. It's going to be quite a bit less than that, because a lot of that is...
Yeah, it doesn't happen lawn, you're mowing and things that way.
Lawn and mow and stuff.
And fertilizer, yeah.
And I don't remember enough from what we presented a couple years ago to remember if that cost was in there or not. It doesn't sound like it off the top of my head. I'd have to double check, but the cost for the staff person would be 70.
And this is something where maybe next year you could look at seeing if the residents would support a RAP tax, that Recreation, Arts and Parks, 0.1% additional sales tax on what is sold here, and maybe with some of the new commercial, it'll do well. A couple years ago, I did an estimate with Gary, and that could add $100,000 then, so it's gone up a little bit since then.
Well, and I think our sales tax with COVID's been up because everyone's buying online. I mean, it might stay up high. I mean, when you talk about the retail, some of the retailers went down. It's your online that raised. Actually, Highland might have been a really kind of a good area where we didn't rely so heavy on the retail sales, and we garnered those internet sales.
Yeah,
and
I think there's some options that we could look at to do ongoing funding for maintenance. That's what that tax is specifically for, Recreation, Arts and Parks. And my view on that one is because it's the sales tax, then we capture people that, besides our residents that are coming here, like to use a splash pad or Highland Glen. When we get some commercial over by Boyer, maybe they'll pick up some of the Highland Glen
costs.
People that spend money, they would spend it there. And then you've got, Alpine people shop in our grocery stores. So it's a way to spread the burden beyond just our residents.
So Mayor, I think it was before we look at the RAP tax, we got to find out what goes with this transportation fee going through the legislation right now. But that would kind of give us maybe a little bit of a guidance coming out there at the 1st of March.
Yes.
What to kind of try to tackle.
So, and we'll know more about that going on. It's kind of a little bit off topic, but it's germane because it relates to the park. All fair. Anything else specifically? Advice for Erin on what she needs to do to get us the information that we want.
So Erin, you feel we have $2.5 million that we could spend right now on a park?
Correct.
Okay.
And then, again, you've got a couple weeks to email or phone call and caucus amongst yourselves.
Sure.
and see what we can do here. And Kurt, we should probably, or we'll get Brian and we'll talk to Surf Soccer about the fields and how, if they would be interested in helping with those.
And we do have some online participants. Brian Braithwaite's online, and I'll say we've had a handful of comments on YouTube about the park, so people are interested. So an individual commented it might be worth it to do, it's not worth it to do just for pickleball courts, so maybe you do all of the playground or all of the pickleball courts as a phase one. And then somebody showed interest in fundraising, and then a question about the timeline, and as a clarification, while we could hope for 2021, 2022 is probably more realistic at this point.
Aaron, Rob has something to add.
Oh, sorry, Rob. Oops, that's the wrong button.
Just another thing for consideration as far as pricing goes. One of the reasons the price that you see as you're talking about, how much pickleball court costs, that kind of thing is the prices that you see before you represent a general contractor doing all this work. Now, I know the city obviously let our staff have just been talking about that, but if there's an ability to have a general contractor, just do more of the main infrastructure, and then the city contract directly with a court contractor to get the courts in, and playground installer to get the playground in separate from the general contractor, there's a bit of money you can save that way as well. Again, it puts more burden on the city to manage that work, but you'll save construction costs and general contractor markup on those items.
Thanks, Rob. Anything else, or are we?
I just want to express my thanks to the staff for all the work you're doing on this. Thanks, Aaron, and everyone else that's been involved, and Rob.
Yeah, kudos to Rob. He stuck with us for a long haul on this project, and another couple of years probably, Rob, so we're grateful for you.
Okay. And thanks to everybody that in the past has contributed that are local. We have one person representing a lot of people here tonight, so thank you, Wes and friends. All right, next item is mayor and council staff communication items, and Tyler is up first. Speaking of money,
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Great to be with you. This is some information that is not new. We looked at this calendar that you have in front of you here a couple weeks ago, but just want to keep in the forefront of your minds the budget development that we have coming up. So some key dates to keep in mind. Staff is working on projections and some figures that will go into a working draft that will be distributed to you near the end of March, and of course want to engage in conversations and questions that you would have there. We're planning a work session middle of April, there on April 13th, then adoption of the tentative budget on May 4th, followed by a public open house if we're able to gather in that type of a setting that week as well. Another work session there penciled in for June 1st, and then adoption of the budget there for fiscal year 2022 there on June 15th. So again, not new information, but want to keep that in front of you. And as always, interested in your feedback on input on the input process. If this provides the opportunity that you're looking for to establish priorities and communicate those to staff and receive information, we're happy to adjust as you may require. So, any questions?
When, just one, so the public safety budget gets finalized, when do we want to finalize that?
So we're planning on doing that. Those dates will align with this schedule. We'll be meeting with the board for Lone Pete next week and presenting a revised schedule to them as well.
Okay, so that needs to be a little bit ahead of ours, right, so we know what those are for sure.
Right.
Okay, all right, perfect. And that'll come next week or whatever.
Correct.
Any council, any questions?
Fine.
All right.
I just appreciate you looking so far out to kind of help us, get our schedules put together. I'm one that, if you looked, I could already tell you, hey, in April I've got this, or in May, June. So thank you for doing that, because sometimes it's hard a week or two out also to try to change your schedule, so.
Sure. We understand that schedules will change, and we're happy to adapt to that, but here's the plan, and we'll stick to that as much as we can. Thank you.
Okay. Then you have the future meeting schedule in front of you. Any other comments or questions that we haven't talked about that council members would like to raise?
I have one, Mayor. I meet with the North Point Waste Transfer Station, and there's some discussion, and I'm gathering some information, but the city of Orem, in working with the transfer station, different things, has a software program, and the North Point Waste Management is thinking about adopting. They're looking at a couple different programs, but they would like to work with the cities and see if they're interested, because we have waste management and they've done a pretty good job educating people, but this software program would do things like, if you clicked on a box, you could find out exactly what can be recycled and what can't, even though we have things pasted in our cupboards and things like we do at my house. But it also tell exactly the services that are available to the public to take things to the waste station, and then they'd even go so far, the software programs that they presented to us would actually text people and say, you need to put out your recycle can this week, and there's little reminders and a lot of integrated education. And it's pretty reasonable. So they're going to put that software program in after they pick a vendor down at the waste, or the transfer station. But I was supposed to go and ask the city if there would be any interest in that. And I've got information, and I thought maybe I could sit down with Aaron, because you work with the waste management, right? And see if there'd be any interest. Because they say that they work well with the haulers. And so, I don't know, it'd be another level of education and communication with the citizens about garbage disposal and things that you can take down to the dump, basically. So.
Thanks, Scott, that was interesting. Probably be useful for us, so.
Yeah, I think it'd be really useful, because I have to ask my wife, I'm on the board down there, and I have to ask my wife what we can recycle and not recycle. So, I mean, I think a lot of people probably really don't have a good idea. And it'd be nice to, I didn't know for a long time you could take your electronics down there. I mean, I've got an old computer I'd like to get rid of, but you can take it down there. You can take your refrigerators. There's lots of things you can take there. And with the closure of the green waste at the Timpanogue sewer, you can take your green waste down there now, and they try to recycle it, or not recycle, compost as much as they can, but the rest will go to Bayview. But it might be just a good way to communicate. So I'll try to find more information if anybody's, and see if the city is interested. I think the price is not terrible, so.
Okay.
I'm interested in that, Scott, especially the recycling portion. I'm always having to ask my husband, who's from California and knows all the recycling rules.
Right. Well, we have to watch the people in the neighborhood who puts out the right cans, see if we get it, and sometimes they get it all mixed up,
No, I think it'd be good to have us, I always have to ask, is this recycle week? Like tonight's my garbage night, and I go, well, is it recycle? I don't know if I take it out or not.
Yeah.
That is the thing, we probably help my marriage, because my wife always says that does not go in the recycle, so that might be a good.
Yeah, so you can just pull it up, this is and this isn't, and I think it'd be nice to know that. So I'll talk to Aaron as I find more information, and of course, price is always an issue. But.
Yeah, I know that some cities, especially who have pushed communications on what can be recycling, have seen their rates go down ultimately, because you're getting less contamination, so which is always a good thing. So.
The other thing, just one last thing, because I know we're near the end of the meeting, but the other thing they're talking about down there is maybe putting in an auxiliary transfer station, a smaller one, kind of up in the northwest part of the county. And so that'd be a shorter commute, because right now we have to go all the way down past to the lake. But, so there's a lot of discussion. I'll bring it forth to the council as they decide. So.
Awesome. So I would entertain a motion to go into closed session for the purposes listed on item 12 on the agenda.
So moved.
I move that we go into closed session to discuss the real property as noted in the Utah Code. I think that's what we need to.
Yeah, and then Scott is going to, so motion by Kurt, Scott, second by Scott. All in favor, say yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right, and then I think, let's by a quarter till, if we're all back here, so we can start the closed session. That gives people time to clear out and then take care of any other needs they might have.